Hi everyone, this is Katie again, and this ATC Tip of the Week is a continuation on concussions, but today we're going to talk about the physiology, which is really the most exciting part for me. So what happens when you get a concussion? We talked about the rotational or linear forces, and we talked about not needing to have an impact force to have a concussion, but what's really happening inside? I like to think of it as the brain getting a bruise. You get a bruise on your arm, you get a lot of swelling, sometimes you get black and blue, which is just blood vessels bursting, nothing crazy there. So when the brain gets a bruise or concussion from getting jostled around in the head, it causes micro damage to the neurons, to the blood vessels within the brain. And that's okay. What happens though is when those neurons get damaged, it slows down their neural activity, makes them less responsive. So if you think of things in relation to the brain here, depending where your bruise is really going to impact where or what type of symptoms you're having. If you have a bruise on your forearm, you might have pain moving your arm or moving your wrist in specific directions. Same thing applies. So if you have an injury towards the amygdala, you might have more emotional symptoms. Your hippocampus might be more memory-related symptoms. The occipital, or the back of your head, you might have more visual symptoms, like visual disturbances. And these symptoms you might get would be memory issues, confusion, short retention, or can't focus as well, increased sadness or irritable, and things like that. Light sensitivity might be another one. So it really just depends where the bruise is, and those are hard things for us to determine as well. So the other important part when you sustain a concussion, besides the neural injury, is the blood flow restriction. So what also happens in the brain is your blood flow gets decreased because, you know, the blood vessel gets disturbed. Completely normal to happen. But what happens is that disturbs the homeostasis or your metabolism in your brain, and it kind of takes away that normal state that you usually feel. So with that slowed blood flow and more energy is needed to get those neurons to really activate in the way that you're used to going, you can get the supply and demand imbalance. And that's why some of these symptoms really ramp up. That's why you get tired more often. If you're asking for more energy and you're trying to do a bunch of things like classwork and just being awake, you tend to slow down and get tired more often. So all this happens. You have the decreased blood flow, you have the slowdown in neural activity. So why is it so important to rest? Not just because of all that, but the dangers associated with that slowdown in your normal homeostasis. So second impact syndrome is really the big red flag as to why you can't just go back and play after a concussion. What happens is if you get a second hit after your first concussion, or two in a small amount of time, and this could be days up to 2 weeks, your brain can't really respond well to that second force or that second concussion, and you get brain swelling, and that's a big emergency. That's where that egg analogy again, it's starting to push on the egg shell, and that becomes a problem, and people can die from that or have significant damage for long lasting periods. So that's why you can go and play right after a concussion. It's just safety for yourself and for your future. It's also important to report these symptoms as soon as possible, not only for second impact syndrome, but you can prolong your concussion by trying to play through it. Those who have symptoms and report them right away typically have a shorter recovery time, depending on other factors, but those who don't report their concussion symptoms right away can be twice as long of a recovery time than they need to be. And we don't want you out of sport either, so the sooner you can tell us and the sooner you can help take care of yourself, the better it puts everybody to try to get you out there safely sooner. So that healing process, how does that happen? Well, if you watch the next video, I'll tell you all about it.